Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for everyone to get in here.
Hello.
Oh, there we are. Perfect.
Yes. Yes. Okay,
All
cool.
right.
There's just nobody here yet.
Just waiting to see if anyone's going to pop in here. See what's going to go on there.
Oh.
Oh. Oh. Oh. 10 hearts. Let's see.
Oh my god. Hold on. Okay,
Yeah.
you get hearts every time I click share.
No.
Oh, okay, so while we're waiting, how did your story turn out?
Like, good? What do you mean?
No, I mean, like, how did you, like, you like it? Like, you're ready? Like, it's good?
Yeah.
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 Whoa, what is that?
Me typing.
Really? Why is it? Hold on.
Hold on. Hold
It
on.
sounded like normal, and then it sounded like you were in another place.
I'm currently doing that thing. I don't know if you've ever
Mhm.
seen on TikTok where you slowly pet your pet a little bit harder every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Umbra's just sitting here. She doesn't care.
It is what it is.
Like, she's purring. I'm gonna send you a picture. And you're gonna just cry.
I'm already crying.
Oh, yeah.
She looks like an alien.
She does. She does.
She looks like a little alien.
Yeah, good times.
Oh, can you still hear me?
I can, yeah.
Oh my god. I'm still gonna use this app. Looking about. It's amazing. I'm clicking.
About.
Just says
Oh my
welcome.
god.
Welcome. Hello.
So much about. I've never been so many about.
So many. Ooh, what? Wait. Oh no, I can't do that.
Excitement. All right. Okay. Well, shall we? Swiss, shall we get started?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, welcome everybody to episode number 21. Last week we had 20.5. It was our bloopers episode and it was absolutely hilarious. I love our bloopers. Our bloopers are always spot on bloop. So they are,
The bloop. Ever the
yeah,
bloopiest.
right? Everyone was like at our bloopers and they were just like, right?
What is this?
Because yeah, good blooping. We did mention that we had an exciting update that we want to give to everybody. Before we get there, I just want to say for anybody listening on anything, you can be listening to us on Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Listen Notes, Samsung Podcasts, and we also have our podcasts uploaded to YouTube. So if you ever just want to head over there, throw on the playlist, just let them autoplay through and just listen in, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited about the YouTube thing.
Right? The YouTube thing is very fun. Always. It's YouTube.
You're a YouTube fan.
Right? But as for our special announcement, do you want to share it, Mish?
Yeah. So we plan to, and I don't think this comes as a surprise, we
Oh my
plan to
god.
publish a book of our short stories.
Uh-oh.
Oh, was that not the announcement?
No, it was.
Okay. Oh, did I mess up?
It was like, oh my god, you guys were planning to do a book the whole time? I had no idea. Why would you write stories and turn it into a book afterwards? That's absolutely like unfathomable.
Incredible. So yeah, we're gonna do this. And it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be fun. If you have, we're probably. I don't know if we're gonna add. You know what? We gotta look into it, but I don't know if we're gonna add our own voices as like an audiobook type of thing to it, which would be nice.
Yeah, an audiobook part of it would be very nice. At the moment, what we are doing is developing like the book cover. We have the stories that are um, already written out, of course, just a little bit of polishing here and there so that they are in the proper formatting for the book.
Yeah,
Everything
there's a lot of
else,
stuff we have to
though,
edit.
yeah, it just comes down to like making sure our writing format is the same. So when you guys are reading these books, you aren't going all like, why does it keep changing?
Yeah. Also, I'm probably like, I don't know, for a couple of mine, there's every once in a while I think back like, oh, I could have added something to that story. So I'm probably gonna do that a lot.
I mean, yeah, you could, because as a little extra thing here, certain stories, well, all stories that we have written, I'm sure, have either further backstory or side story to them. Like, a lot of people always wonder what happens to this person afterwards. Like, what happened to Cupid after Cupid was doing a very bad job, right? What happened
Yeah.
to, like, the pirates, things like that kind of stuff.
But
So
yeah, like I
that
believe
will
it was
be
our
exclusive to
last
the
live.
books.
Yeah. I believe it was our last live that had the soldier prompt where I had COVID and I was reading it. And for that story, I wanted to add a lot more to it. So I'm probably going to hash out a lot of those because it'll be easier for, a book instead of having like 1 or 2 pages. Well, actually, no, they're not really that short, are they?
They're not that short. No, they aren't.
No, no.
But yeah, so we are getting that in the works. Things are going through there, and you can look forward to that. So, yeah, if you want us to, like, for any upcoming books that we're doing, if you have any prompts that you want us to write or anything like that, feel free to send it over to us. You can go to fabulousduo.podbean.com, hit the contact us, go ahead and do that, or you can even leave us a comment on our YouTube or anywhere, really feel free. Just pop into the live as well, throw us some stuff there. We'll always take those notes down. And yeah, your prompt could end up in the book. If you also want to share like a story, like a short story, we can have like we'll pick through things and we will be able to take like, you know, kind of like a donated story to the book and just throw that in there at the end part.
Yeah, like it'll be like a blooper, but it'll be like not a blooper.
No, exactly.
Same format.
Same format as Bloop, but not Bloop.
So, who read first last week? Was me or you?
To be fair, it does not matter. You're reading first this week.
It doesn't matter. Cool. Should we wait for people or should we just.
There are people that are listening in. They're just not on the Podbean app. So there are people on the website. There are people elsewhere, and they are listening to us right now.
Okay, so should I start?
We
Okay, here it goes. Okay, so, oh, hold on. Give me 5 seconds. I just want to. Oh no. There. Okay. So,
Okay.
last week, or the week before, last time, the prompt was the retired king slash queen of thieves is forced to come out of retirement. And the title of the story is The Thieves' Ball. Here goes.
It was autumn and the leaves were changing colors. The wind had the sweet scent of crisp foliage, and the thieves were hosting their annual festival. Every year, all of the local thieves would get together in a newly discussed location to host a small festival where they would play all sorts of games and have competitions. These games and competitions let the thieves show off their mastery of sleight of hand, disguises, and their ability with weapons, mainly throwing knives, on a board with markings to indicate the score. This year, things were going to get a bit spicy, as the winner of this event was to be crowned the next king or queen of thieves, as the previous one had gone into retirement and was no longer participating in these events. Some thieves have a turning point where it comes down to, do I really need more things? Don't I already have it all? Is this even fun still?
Some thieves stole for fun and games, some stole for the sake of charity, and some, unfortunately, had to steal just to keep on living. Even amongst thieves, there was a hierarchy, and those that were stealing for the fun of it felt like they were above the rest. They didn't need the money, they didn't need to do any of this. A lot of the time, it was spoiled kids who wanted to rebel against their family by doing something outrageous, and the rest of the time, it was even more spoiled kids who hated the idea of someone having something they didn't. The previous king of thieves was the only one who had gone from stealing bread just to have one meal a day to stealing from royalty without even a hint of suspicion. Because of him, the hierarchy had shifted in the slightest, where those that were once on the bottom had not been looked down upon or harassed as often. Now that the king retired, no one cared anymore about maintaining peace and began treating those thieves worse as punishment for thinking they could ever be on the same level as the others. The day progressed with many different games and activities to gauge the abilities of those wanting to compete. Only the top 10 thieves that scored the highest throughout the day's events were able to participate in the final act. This was all in the name of keeping the crowd entertained and riled up, ready for the night, as this is when the real fun begins. This year, the competitors that were aiming for a chance to be king or queen were a large group of the most despicable types of thieves. They all seemed to have a similar motive: take everything for themselves and watch everyone else suffer. Simple as that, just more spoiled brats. The judge for this competition came out and announced to everyone the rules. Are you all ready for our main event? Tonight, 10 of you will be competing for a chance to become the new king or queen. The rules are simple. Go out and steal the most valuable object you can find. Bring it back here and we will appraise your treasure to see who has the best haul. With that, the judge signaled for the event to start and the thieves ran off into the night. At first, the thieves seemed to be running in the same direction, until a few split off into the surrounding forestry. The ones staying on the path together were waiting until they were just out of sight from the crowd before pulling out their weapons and starting a fight. It makes it a lot easier to win if there are less competitors. One of the thieves had pulled out a knife and lunged at one of the others on the path. Being a thief meant being nimble and always aware of your surroundings, so the target was prepared and jumped off to the side slightly while throwing a knife at their attacker. The remaining two thieves that were on the path had continued bolting for town, as getting in a fight meant less time for looting. The clash between the original two was very short-lived. The thief that had made the first attack had not much wits to them, aside from brute forcing their way through this. The knife that the defending thief threw had a paralytic substance on it, so after a few moments of dodging about, the brute had stopped moving and fell to the ground. What did you do to my body? 10 out of 10 voice acting. He struggled to speak, but was clearly using an infuriated tone. The other thief had just cackled to himself and walked up to the brute and crouched down beside him. Don't worry, you'll get used to this. His grin grew wider before he took out a very fancy-looking blade. He began to make swift cuts on the tendons of the brute's arms and legs before getting up and walking away. Hopefully someone helps you before the animals get to you. With that, the brute was left on the floor and was no longer able to compete. Among the thieves that had gone out into the forestry, there were two specifically that stood out amongst the others, Errol and Alice. They were twins, and thought that they could share the title of king or queen as long as one of them had been crowned. Although they were identical, their appearances were so androgynous that no one could tell which was the brother and which was the sister. These two were already very well known and had quite the sinister reputation. I had to burp. Unlike the others that stole any valuable objects and trinkets from people, the twins being from a noble background enjoyed stealing only things with sentimental value. They thought of it as stealing people's will to live, and that idea sent the most tingling shivers down their spines when they did. Whether it be taking a child's favorite doll or the jewelry of a wife that had just passed away straight from their husband's hands, it did not matter the monetary value, as long as it brought about despair. These twins had thought of something they believed to be a wonderful idea. Let's go steal from the previous king of thieves, Errol started, and make sure we damage their pride as a thief. Alice snickered, finishing her brother's thought. Now, being the previous king of thieves, Alistair did not have a very public address, as he knew the dangers. Not only would guards come looking for him, but anyone he stole from may have hired assassins to get their revenge on him. Somehow, though, through all these years of being extremely elusive, these twins had found multiple tips that led to the same location, and it wasn't so far off that they couldn't make the trip back. They couldn't make the trip there and back before the competition ended. They broke off from the other participants and headed straight to the location that was mentioned in the tips. After traveling for about an hour, the twins had made it to the valley where Alistair's home was. It was a beautiful chateau surrounded by a moat, and there was an abundance of flowers growing all around. Definitely a place that looked peaceful and luxurious. But just how would someone live here without anyone knowing who it was? Or at least trying to enter to question them? Errol and Alice had been dashing through the field, heading straight for the home, when Alice tripped on a wire and a bunch of darts shot in her direction. Errol quickly tackled her to the side, barely escaping the graze of the darts. So, this entire place is booby-trapped, it seems. That would definitely give some privacy, Alice said as she dusted herself off, regaining her composure after almost becoming a piece of Swiss cheese. With much more care, which with much more care, they had made their way across the field and entered the residence. The inside seemed so huge and was filled with the most amazing ornaments. All of the things that Alistair had stolen, which he did not pawn off for money, had been put on display. These were lovely objects that could definitely fetch a high price, but were most likely not sold due to the rarity of it and the risk level. If someone was to see him carrying an item that only the lord of a region should have, it would definitely cause suspicion. Plus, Alistair liked decorating, and having all these beautiful things sprinkled around each room gave it such flavor, and it would make him feel a tingle of joy inside. Living as an orphan, having to steal food just to survive, it made him really appreciate the value of everything. It wasn't until shortly before retiring as a thief that the feeling had left. When he looks around his room now, he thinks of the memories associated with the heist he had pulled off and would get a slight smile, but no longer did he feel that tingling sensation inside of him. Now, with the twins inside, they had seen so many different things here that they could bring back and definitely win this competition. But they wanted to find the ultimate item, the one item that can make them solidify their names in the history of thieves. Prowling around, they made it to a small room at the end of a hallway. This hallway had no other doors. It was just narrow and led straight to a wooden door. The twins opened the door slowly, listening carefully if any traps were about to go off, but there was nothing. Carefully stepping into the room, there sat on a pedestal was the previous Thief King's first sword that he ever used and had continued using over the years. The value of the sword itself was not very high, but the sentimental value of the sword that carried him through so many hard times of his career would be the one item that could not only hurt his pride as a thief, but potentially break him. As sneakily as they entered, they had left the king's home with their prize and scurried back towards the festival to get their assessment complete. Dashing through the meadows and forestry, the twins heard the brushes near them shake ever so slightly. Hearing the sound, they figured it was more of the thieves from before and tried to rush further, but before they knew it, both had been hit in the head with something and passed out. Shortly after, Errol had awoken and saw his sister laying there, still unconscious. He picked her up and carried her towards the festival until she had awoken and was able to run on her own. He realized that when he picked her up, neither of them had the cloth wrapped sword, but that didn't matter as long as his sister was safe. Finally, as the last two got back to the festival, the judge was ready to assess the spoils of everyone's pillaging, as the time that was allotted was nearing its end. Out of the 10 that had made it out, only 4 of them made it back. The thieves all scratched their heads and looked around at each other nervously. Oddly, none of them had any loot on them to bring for the assessment. What is this? Did you all make a pact so no one would win or lose, and therefore you'd all be crowned or something? This is an absolute mockery of our festival. The judge sounded agitated at the sight of these thieves with nothing to offer. From the back of the crowd, a man spoke out. Would I be able to participate in this? I am a little late. A cloaked figure had walked forward. You are too late and have no time to even steal anything. What good are you? The judge sneered at the figure. The man pulled a sack forward and opened it in front of everyone. Inside was all of the stolen items that the thieves had gathered that night. He then removed his hood, and the entire crowd was shocked, and a rush of oohs and ahs slipped from everyone's lips. Look, clearly none of you are ready to be the Thief King, so I'll just be stealing my position back. If anyone has a problem with it, you're more than welcome to take it up with my friend. He laughed exuberantly, pulling out the sword that the twins had stolen and winking towards them. With that, Alistair had come back out of retirement and found a new enjoyment, teaching these spoiled brats a lesson in thievery. Rather than stealing from random people, he had a lot of fun stealing his things back from the twins and hunting down the other thieves that had stolen things. He never killed any of them, but he did knock them out for a bit, longer than expected. With that, a new festival game was created. Instead of bringing the most valuable item back for assessment, you had to escape the current king and keep your possessions safe. The end.
Yeah,
That was cute.
right? It's cute. I wrote enough dark stories. Except for the guy getting his like ligaments torn and stuff through with the knife and all his like tendons cut. But that's different.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
no, that was
different.
sweet. I like that in the end. That was what they decided to do. Just the king of thieves became like a father figure type of deal.
Well, yeah, because he's just like, you know what? Y'all suck at this. You got one person cutting someone in the middle of the road, didn't even try to hide the body. The others ran away because I knocked them out. Well, because I took their items from them and they got scared. And the people that got knocked out, y'all got knocked out. What kind of thieves get knocked out? So Alistair is
Yeah.
definitely ready to teach them a new way to go about their life of thievery.
I like the concept of the twins stealing things with sentimental value too. I like that. I find it interesting that they're able to kind of like they're just that good at figuring out what's meaningful to somebody and what's like not. I really like that.
Yeah, because like how's these two found out where Alistair lives when he is literally like a thief king in hiding? They are really good at gathering information. They're really good at like that kind of stuff. And I wanted that to be evident there. So it's like, especially with like getting the sentimental valuable items, it's like, well, how would you know? Well, you don't just walk in there and steal. You gotta plan. So you could be like, okay, this mother just gave that child a doll. However, the
If I
mother's
kill the
dead
mother,
now.
no. If I murder the mother, the sentimental value goes up. I have now crashed the market.
The centimarket, if you will.
This
Yeah.
is this.
Yeah. We both thought of death. It's okay.
Yes, that's how it is. That's how it is out here.
It is. So, you liked it?
I liked it. It was cute. I really like the twins who have that sentimental thing going on.
Yeah. I did try to make it clear that Alistair isn't like a bad guy, you know? He's just stealing because he needed to live, but at some point along the way, he just stole because it was fun.
Yeah, thievery isn't exactly immoral.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Not when you're stealing from like royalty and stuff,
No,
you know?
yeah, it's this. You're right. But he was like a Robin Hood, and then he's like, now I'm just doing it for fun.
Now I'm just Robin.
But
So, yeah. And, I want to just make it clear he doesn't kill people just because, well, at least not the other thieves. And that's a part of their code, It's just like, look,
yeah.
we're all in this together. Trademarked.
Yes, excellent.
Yes, good. All right. Well, hope everybody enjoyed that story. Feel free to leave comments about it and everything, or just pop in and say hey. But yeah. So the prompt that I gave Michelle last time, and that I have been very excited to read, basically, Michelle's story this week is that a chef competition where the judges are all cannibals.
Quick thing. It's pretty graphic. But, I mean, I feel like it's not going to be more graphic than other things, but it's pretty graphic.
Okay.
So just a warning.
I mean, it's cannibalism.
Yeah.
If cannibalism isn't graphic, then are you doing it right?
I'm just like, did you say cannibalism? Cool. So we're talking about recipes.
Oh yeah, no, I have recipes, but it's okay. Before we devolve further, let's get started with the story provided by my shell.
Ah.
Your shell. That shell over there. The story is called That Time at Summer School. Wow, already just like, oh god, cannibalism during summer? Don't you think that they ever... Oh god. Don't you think that they have cannibalistic tendencies? She asked with her hand on my shoulder. What are you talking about? I responded. Tuli and I had been friends from the moment we were born, and every year we were sent to the same summer camp. Our mothers were best friends, too, and they valued knowledge more than anyone else I knew. We were sent to all kinds of summer camps, everything from sports to mental math camps, always together. This time, it was a cooking camp. Well, think about it. In order to get along with their peers, they collectively choose another one of their peers to make fun of, almost like a sacrifice. She nodded her head towards a group of campers all standing around a younger boy at the end of the lunch line. They were tossing something around between them, keeping it away from the boy who was desperately trying to get it back on the verge of tears. Is it cannibalism if they don't see him as one of their own? I asked, picking up an extra plate of the daily special slop. If you or I eat human flesh without knowing or caring what it is, then we're still cannibals, even if unintentionally, she responded, loading an apple into a slingshot she made at engineering camp a few years back. Good point, I said, reeling my arm back with a handful of slop. Would you say cannibalism is immoral? She asked. At this moment, I think so. With that, I flung the slop at the closest one of the cannibals, hitting him square in the back of the head with an echoing splat throughout the lunchroom. All the other kids turned to see where the sound had come from, and when they realized what was about to happen, they all ran to the other side of the lunchroom. He turned around to see who had assaulted him and was hit right in the face with an apple and dropped to the floor. Impeccable aim as always, Thule, I complimented her. You too, Eris, she complimented back. Hey, what do you think you're doing? One of them shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at us. What are you doing? Give him his stuff back, said Thule, crossing her arms. Why don't you make me? He said, stepping closer to us. I raised my arm, getting ready to throw another handful of daily special, when a hand grabbed my wrist, stopping me from granting the boy's request. A shrill voice rang out above my head. What on earth is going on here? I turned to see one of the camp instructors behind me with a frown so deep that I thought she was wearing a Halloween mask. They were bullying that kid, Thule explained, pointing at them. A couple of them were helping the first boy off the floor. No, we weren't. We were just playing with him, one of them protested. She let my wrist go and stepped in between us and the group facing us. They were just playing and you misunderstood the situation and started wasting food, she said, hands on her hips, glaring at us. They're lying, I began, but the instructor raised her finger and cut me off. Study hall, now, she said sternly, pointing to the door of the cafeteria. I reluctantly stomped off towards the door with Thule behind me. That nasty slop you call food was put to better use this way anyways, she grumbled as we walked through the doors. The instructor was right on our heels, escorting us to the classroom where they keep all the problem children that Thule and I were all too familiar with. You stay in here until the end of the day reading through your Cuisines of the World textbooks, she instructed, holding the door open for us. But what about the cooking competition? I whipped around and looked at her, and her tiny eyes almost buried in wrinkles. I was really enjoying cooking and had won every competition so far. A cruel smile spread across her face. You will not be participating. And with that, she slammed the door shut. My shoulders slumped, and I could feel the frown on my face. Every week, the camp would have a cooking contest with a mystery ingredient that I had never even heard about in my textbooks, and as off-putting as it was, I loved a challenge. Thule didn't like the cooking competition as much, but she could never tell me why. It seemed like she had a conspiracy theory brewing in her head, so I never pressed her on it. I sighed and turned to take a seat at one of the desks, only to see Thule with one foot out an open window looking at me expectantly. What are you doing? I gasped. I know how much you like the competition. Let's just sneak out and see it, she said, holding her hand out to me. But what if she comes back to check on us? Then what? We get sent home? Do you really think they're going to send us home and risk having to refund our parents? She scoffed. She was right. the camp advertised a money-back guarantee deal, but I would never have thought to use the deal as a loophole to do what I wanted. I let out a giggle and took her hand, and we were through the window faster than that pile of slop could fly through the air. To be honest, I wasn't interested in watching at all, but breaking out of detention was a much better use of our time than just staying in a hot, stuffy room reading a textbook that we've already read over and over again. We snuck around buildings and trailers and hid behind garbage cans, making sure no one saw us as we made our way back to the venue. We were 30 minutes early, so we were just in time to watch them bring out the food. There were fresh fruits and vegetables, all kinds of different spices and delectable looking meats brought out on rolling carts into the outside kitchen they had set up in front of the bleachers. We watched for a few minutes as trolleys and trolleys of food were rolled past us, and finally, the last trolley seemed to have the day's special ingredient on it because it was covered with a red velvet cloth lined with gold trimmings. I heard Thule tisk next to me. Why don't they ever feed us any of that? Why do they only give us ambiguous substances to eat? This is a cooking camp, isn't it? She questioned in a whisper. We had been at the camp for about a month now, and it only just occurred to me that she was right. We had been working with good food all this time, but we were never given any of it. Before I could think about it any further, Tuli dashed from my side and made her way towards the doors all the food had come out of. Eyes wide with worry, I motioned for her to come back. You're going to get us caught, I hissed, trying to remain inconspicuous. This is our chance to see what the weird ingredient is, she hissed back. During the competition, we were allowed to grab as much of any ingredient we wanted to make our dish, except the mystery ingredient. We were each given a proportioned amount and nothing more, which was normal for an event like this. Tuli always had a knack of prodding my curiosity, just enough to go along with whatever crazy thing she was doing. And this time, too, she was right on the money. I'd always wanted to know what the stuff was. I looked around quickly, making sure no one was around, and I ran across the path towards the back door. The door was locked, so all we could do was sit in the bushes by the door and wait for someone to come out. Don't you think it's weird for the door to be locked while they're setting up? She whispered after a long silence. Maybe they don't want anyone to cheat by finding out what the ingredient is, I whispered back. She looked at me and raised her eyebrow. Really? She asked. What? Do you really think that's why they locked the door? I thought for a second, to be honest. Would knowing what the ingredient was really give anyone an advantage? We had already been doing this for a month, and I had won every time without knowing what it was. Bears? Her gaze became more exasperated. Well, why else would they want to keep it a secret? I asked. Before she could answer, the door swung open and the instructor burst through with a wild look in her eyes and stormed off in the direction of the stage. I grabbed the handle of the door before it could swing close, and with the speed of light, both me and Thule ran through. The room was dark and cold, and there was a weird smell coming from deeper within it. But we didn't have any time to explore, as we heard the instructor unlocking the door to come back in. I dived behind some kind of barrel with a biohazard symbol on it, while Thule shoved herself between the wall and a box of produce. We both held our breaths as the instructor stomped in and around the room, and left through another door that seemed to connect to the cafeteria. Looks like she lost something, I snickered. Or some people, she laughed, squeezing herself from the boxes, behind the boxes. It's faster if we split up. I'll take the right side and you take the left, she instructed. I nodded and started searching for any ingredients I didn't recognize, until finally my nose picked up that weird smell that hit me as soon as I walked in here again. Following the scent led me right back to the barrel with the biohazard symbol on it. Hey, Tuli, was there a rule about biohazardous material being stored next to food in the food storage safety list? I called to her, but there was no answer. It was a big, loud fridge after all. Probably she didn't hear me. I started examining the barrel to see if there were any other labels on it or any clues that would tell me what this was. It must have been put here for storage by the nurse or something, just gave a breach in protocol. There was no way this was the mysterious ingredient. Just then, I heard a weak voice call my name from the other side of the fridge. Aris? I had never heard Tuli sound so shaky. I think I found it, she said. My curiosity always had me running this way, and that to find answers to questions. This was the first time in my life that I didn't want the answer to my questions. I slowly walked over to where I heard Tuli's voice come from until I saw her slumped on the ground in the doorway of what looked like a freezer, with her hand over her mouth and eyes wide. If she heard me come closer, she didn't react. She kept staring at whatever was in there, not moving a muscle, not blinking. I don't even think she was breathing. The smell was similar to the smell coming from the barrels at the front, but somehow more fresh. And that thought made me feel disgusted. I knew what Tuli was looking at. I didn't want to see it with my own eyes, but if she had seen it, then it was only right that I see it too. I walked next to her, looking down at her horrified expression, and took a deep breath before I looked up. There, hanging upside down on a meat hook, was the kid that was being bullied in the cafeteria. Blood was being drained from him, and I could see the parts of him that they cut out for the competition. My body went numb, and I stood there staring into his face, my brain itself trying to tell me that he was just sleeping. Just then, the door leading to the cafeteria opened, and we both instinctively ran for the other door. We pried it open and ran right outside into the instructor. There you are, she screamed. Congratulations! You're going to be the first kids whose parents we refund. I hope you're happy. She placed her hands on our shoulders and led us to the office, while we shared a glance at each other. After the initial shock and disgust, I could tell that we both had come to the same conclusion. There was no way they were going to get away with this, and we would make sure of it. The end.
What do you think?
I think it was good. I was just like, oh, how graphic is it going to get? And it's like, blood. All right.
Yeah, I mean, a kid hanging on
Yeah.
a meat hook upside down while his blood is draining out. I thought that was graphic, but I guess that's just me.
That's Tuesday.
Okay, so just me.
But, yeah. But no, I really liked it. I was like, ooh, it's like a summer camp, not just like, you know, I could see like it visually in my head when I originally gave the prompt, and I was thinking of like, you go into like Iron Chef or something, and you have them all standing there in front, and it's like, what have you prepared for us today, chef? Well, today I prepared Aaron's leg. Um, with some cranberry sauce. And it's like, ah, excellent. No, 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 no. But you took it to a whole other thing, like the friend with the conspiracy theories, and then the conspiracy actually being like true or like real in a sense, where it's just like, they wouldn't treat them like that if they thought of them as this. So therefore, is it cannibalism? And then that thing too, it's like, if I see you as something lesser than me and not human, does it count as cannibalism? It should still count as cannibalism because biologically you're still human. But, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like trying to come up with something overly complicated at first when I was gonna write this, and I was like, you know what? Because like, um, the a lot of stuff happened in politics because I like to
Yeah,
follow politics, and I was like, this is the cannibalism is gonna be a metaphor for capitalism, and it's gonna be like the capitalists cannibalize their own members of the human race to profit. But then I'm like, oh, that's too much.
so therefore it's like cannibalism is cannibalism. Am I right?
Exactly. So I was just like, you know what? We're gonna kill a bullied kid. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
was another thing. I was like, am I gonna kill off this bullied kid? Yes, yes, I'm gonna kill him off because I'm like he's the only other character. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had fun touching on the bullying because like the teacher came in and immediately blamed the kids because or blamed the two main girls because they wasted food and didn't even ask the bullies like what like didn't even ask the kid who the victim if he was being bullied or not, just immediately punished
Exactly.
the two girls.
Which is so
um
suspicious.
yeah. And then like I was trying to like drop kind of like hints where it's like they're just given this weird slop,
Yeah.
they're at a cooking school and they're given like this stuff they don't even know what it is to eat. um
Exactly. It's like, wait, what are we cooking? Because I know when I was in high school and we took like hospitality, it's like, oh, you made the stuff and you get to eat the stuff, or this is the stuff that's going to be sold during lunchtime in the cafeteria,
yeah,
right? And it's
yeah.
actual food, not slop.
Exactly. So like yeah, and we went to the same high school. So yeah, everything that the hospitality kids cooked was sold for lunch to the students, which
Yeah.
obviously that makes sense. But like here, it's like they cook for class or whatever. They don't know what happens to the food. Like it's just they cook for the competition. They don't get to eat any of it. So it's just like that's suspicious.
But in a
A
way,
little
it's
sus.
like, it's suspicious, but it's like, at least the camp staff isn't making the kids into cannibals. That's the upside to it, right?
Well, so
You're like, the slop is the bone meal.
so I didn't really have an well, okay. I didn't have too much of an idea for what the slop is or whatever, but the idea is that the camp is a front for some kind of like cannibalism ring, right?
Yeah.
So basically, when you're taking these kids, you're taking these kids to a summer camp where they're there to like be mold. Their minds are there to be molded by you. You could do anything. You could
Hmm.
train them into being cannibals. You could train them into become personal chefs for the people who want the to eat humans, that type of thing. So like my general idea, like roughly for this, was that the camp was to train chefs, like little chefs, to cook human meat. So like it would be like at first they don't know that it's human meat, but as they learn that it's human meat, or they like slowly introduce them to the fact that it's human
Yeah.
meat, and like the ones that are cool with it can stay, the ones that are not cool with it, you gotta eat them. Like just I that's more to write, but that's just general idea with a cannibalist school, like
Yeah.
a secret cannibalism school. But
And this is
yeah,
actually perfect because this gives an exact example of what we mean when we're going to be adding in extra little details into the book that you wouldn't be getting from like the actual, like, listening in.
mm-hmm.
Um, Not because, we want to withhold the story from you guys. It's just, you can listen to the stories for free anytime. But if you get the book, you get little extra surprises.
Yeah, just like little add-ons and stuff like that, and also it's nice to have like a physical copy of the thing. Anyway,
Yeah. I mean, physical copy, and it'll have an online version. There will be a physical copy, yes.
ah,
Yeah.
that's why you're the boss. No. So
I'm the marketing team, so Michelle doesn't have much of the details on that, but that's okay because she will be informed in our next meeting.
excellent. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent.
um, but yeah, so I really liked writing like that one. You know, I liked creating these two characters and having
Yeah.
like the dialogue and the discourse between them. And yeah. Oh, also, fun fact, I guess, just because I did, I might as well tell you. I named them both after female philosophers. So Tilly
Oh.
is short for Tilia Diagono.
Yeah,
So
obviously.
yeah, so she's Italian. She's an Italian poet, author, and philosopher from Rome. So, and Aris is short for Damaris Cudworth Masham. She's an English philosopher and theologian.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's actually
Yeah.
really funny because like I was when I saw your main character's name, like, thank God I changed my character's names.
Why?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh
Because
no.
it wasn't supposed to be Alice and Errol, it was supposed to be Alice and Eris. But I'm like, you know what? Something's telling me to change Eris to Errol.
Yeah.
Phew.
there's other female philosophers. I was also gonna go with Sosie, who
Oh,
is
yes.
her name. Oh, I have to find her now. But I was like just making short form versions of like all the philosophers, and her name was Sosipatra. She was actually Egyptian.
Ah.
Anyway, if I keep talking about this, I'll never stop.
It's okay. We have 5 more minutes until the hour wraps up, but that doesn't mean we're going to use it. What we're going to do, though, is talk about next week's prompts that
Yes.
you guys will get to listen in on. Um, just because Michelle and I love animals, we love, crows and ravens, especially, and, you know, they're beautiful. I thought that for Michelle's prompt next week, a crow tamer works towards world domination.
I love it.
Right? I just love how, like, crows remember how you treat them. So if you treat them well, they treat you well. There's been so many stories of people who like fed crows and crows would be like, here's $1. They do stuff like that. And there's also stories of like somebody was being mean to crows, and then all the crows are like, what are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Crows and ravens are extremely smart. Like they've been known to be able to use tools like as much as
Yeah.
they can without opposable thumbs. And they also are able to recognize human faces and differentiate between us for up to like 5 years or something like that.
Hmm.
And then they remember who they like and who they don't like. So yeah, no, they're really smart.
They're amazing. I absolutely love them. So yeah, I thought that'd be great for you to write about. And you always like the idea of world domination, right?
Yeah,
So a crow
yeah.
tamer can like end capitalism with crows.
I don't know if that'll be
You're
world
like, I know
domination.
about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so
What do you got for me? Give me something.
your prompt for next week is a person sprouts a third eye. So it doesn't have to be on their forehead. It can be anywhere. And like I have my own like ideas for that, but like I just want to see what you do with it. I want to see like you might take it as like a metaphor, or you might be like, all right, now I got eyes on my knees.
Right? Like I'm just like looking at it and I'm just thinking, I'm like, what would be an amazing place to put an eye? And you'd be like, right on your elbow.
I got eyes on my thighs and I don't care. Okay, bye.
Yeah. So be sure to tune in next week.
Yes.
I can hear myself. I
I
sound
I don't know
great.
how to fix this. I it's plugged in. I don't know why it's mad.
Just do this. There you go. So you just go ahead and mute somebody. Yeah, so be sure to tune in next week for some more fabulous stories. Again, you can listen on Google Podcasts, Podbean like you are now, unless you're on Spotify or Listen Notes or Samsung Podcasts, or you're just listening to this again afterwards on YouTube. But yeah, make sure you send us feedback, send us comments, even send us a story if you want, and we look forward to all that. And with that, I've unmuted Michelle.
Oh. Oh, I was about to swear. I think you swear. So, yeah, this is all we have to say, right?
Yes. So, tune in next week for...
For my
Yeah.
house?
Oh my god, it's
Asking
still
for
going.
walnuts.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.